Liu Fang shook his head and let out a sigh. It still wouldn't work. This Tai Chi he knew had originally just been something he picked up casually from an old man in the park, just superficial moves. Hong Yi might be a genius, but what she learned from him would still only be surface level. At the very least, before she cultivated internal energy, she absolutely wouldn't be a match for Ba Da Si. Moreover, Tai Chi is a fist art based on principles that are naturally calm and plain, like true water has no fragrance. Thus, those who practice Tai Chi are also cultivating a Tai Chi state of mind. Their way of acting and dealing with others must align with the Tao of Tai Chi. Hong Yi's killing intent was far too intense. She simply wasn't suited for Tai Chi. Teaching it to her was only in hopes that she could gradually control the overwhelming killing intent within her. Perhaps in the future, with her talent, she might comprehend something from Tai Chi. His figure shifted slightly, appearing in front of Hong Yi in a flash. His aura surged out and then retracted. The arrogant dwarf was directly blown away, tumbling on the ground from the powerful pressure. Bending down, Liu Feng picked up Hong Yi, who had her eyes closed, and smiled. "What's wrong? Scared?" Feeling that warm embrace, Hong Yi smiled softly. "Not scared. I know you'll save me." Liu Feng was stunned for a moment, then laughed, gently stroking her black hair. Hong Yi obediently nestled her head into the chest she had longed for. "Does it hurt?" Liu Feng's finger brushed across her reddened arm. "It hurts," Hong Yi replied softly, moving her head slightly. "Then will you still learn?" "Yes." "Why?" Hong Yi fell silent, shaking her head slightly. In her heart, she murmured, "To help you kill." Of course, Liu Feng didn't know her thoughts. Seeing that she didn't want to answer, he didn't press further. Turning his head toward Ba Da Si, who had just gotten up awkwardly, he smiled. "Well?" Ba Da Si flushed red and shouted unhappily, "I clearly won. You interfered. Take me out for a drink." Liu Feng shot him a sideways glance and pointed at Hong Yi's red arm. "Didn't I tell you to use only half your strength? How much did you use?" Ba Da Si chuckled awkwardly, scratching his head. "I forgot, but I did hold back quite a bit." Liu Feng rolled his eyes, pulled Hong Yi's arm over, and spread his true energy across his hands, gently massaging it. Feeling the numbness in her arm, the pain seemed to ease. A trace of surprise flashed in Hong Yi's demonic crimson eyes. Liu Feng chuckled. "What, surprised?" Hong Yi nodded honestly. "Follow the method I taught you to cultivate energy, and you'll be able to do it too," Liu Feng said with a smile. Hong Yi nodded again. Eventually, with a little over a month left before the grand duel, Liu Feng gave up on continuing mercenary missions. Every day, besides guiding Hong Yi and cultivating internal energy, he would wander around Sunset City, occasionally drinking with Ba Da Si in taverns. The days passed calmly and leisurely. Until today, Kenz, who had fully recovered from his injuries and unwilling to stay in bed any longer, suddenly had the idea of going to Starlight City to try his luck. Liu Feng didn't object. In fact, he somewhat agreed. The atmosphere in Sunset City was becoming increasingly tense. Soldiers patrolled the streets daily to prevent any incidents, and mercenary business had sharply declined. Many had already taken the opportunity to leave. Since Liu Feng would be participating in the grand duel and wouldn't be able to look after them during that time, letting them leave was a good option. However, Hong Yi stubbornly insisted on staying by his side. This left Liu Feng somewhat helpless. Toward this beautiful yet eerily charming girl, he felt both pity and affection. Unable to scold her, so he let her be. At the city gates, Liu Feng watched the four figures gradually fade into the distance, letting out a soft sigh. The previous night, he had arranged with Ken's that once they reached Starlight City, they should find Bloodwolf and the others. With their help, along with Sophie, the group would likely fare better there. Smiling faintly, he took Hong Yi's hand and walked back into the city. Feeling a bit down from the farewell, Liu Feng remained silent along the way. Though cold to others, Hong Yi was extremely gentle toward Liu Feng. Her small hand gently covered his, lightly swaying it. Feeling that warmth, Liu Feng's heart softened. He gently flicked her delicate nose. Seeing him recover, Hong Yi's crimson eyes curved slightly, her blood-colored lashes fluttering playfully. The two figures walked slowly along the street. The patrolling soldiers, upon seeing them, did not step forward to question them. Instead, they nodded politely from a distance, allowing them to pass freely. They had already received orders and knew clearly what kind of power this seemingly ordinary man possessed. Suddenly, a commotion broke out behind them, accompanied by panicked shouts and several screams. Liu Feng frowned slightly and stopped, turning around. What he saw made his pupils contract. A group of knights had surrounded a burly man. His upper body looked no different from that of a typical bold mercenary, but his bull-like head revealed his identity, a beast man. The Minotaur licked his lips bloodthirstily, his eyes crimson. It had already entered the beast man's unique berserk state. Veins bulged across his arms like writhing snakes, giving off a terrifying presence. The Minotaur's strength was around 5th rank, but after going berserk, it seemed on the verge of breaking into 6th rank. The surrounding knights were all below 4th rank and couldn't effectively harm him. Meanwhile, his massive fists caused severe injuries with every hit. Several knights had already been struck, their heads shattered, blood and brain matter splattering everywhere. Liu Fang shook his head. It seemed he had to intervene. After all, the Ah He brothers had treated him well here, and since a beast man appeared in their territory, he couldn't ignore it. His figure flashed and disappeared, leaving behind a light remark. "Wait here. Don't run around or I'll spank you." Hong Yi froze for a moment, her small face flushing red as she bit her lip lightly. The Minotaur roared wildly, grabbing a heavy hammer from a knight and swinging it viciously toward another knight behind him. The hammer howled through the air, appearing above the knight's head, reflecting his terrified expression. The Minotaur's grin widened cruelly, white steam snorting from his nostrils, as if already anticipating the head being crushed. But the sound never came. A fair hand firmly caught the hammer mid-swing, stopping it completely. The knight looked at Liu Fang, who stood suspended in midair before him, and said gratefully, "Lord Liu Fang, thank you for saving me." "No need. Tell your men to fall back," Liu Fang ordered without turning his head. The knight quickly nodded and signaled. The surrounding knights rapidly retreated, widening the encirclement. They had long heard of this young man's strength, someone who could fight Ah He to a draw, who had battled the legendary Moonwolf King on the Great Plains without defeat. Such feats stirred their blood. Soldiers admire the strong, and knights were no exception. The Minotaur tugged the hammer hard, but it wouldn't budge. A trace of fear rose in his heart, but was quickly overwhelmed by his berserk killing intent. Letting go of the hammer, he swung both his massive arms like a whirlwind, smashing toward Liu Fang. Liu Fang lifted his eyelids slightly, stepping lightly aside to evade. His hands moved gently, forming the posture of Tai Chi. After more than a week of practice, Liu Fang had gained deeper understanding of Tai Chi's principle of using 4 ounces to deflect 1,000 pounds. This extraordinarily strong Minotaur was the perfect test subject. The Minotaur's bell-like eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. His fists left after images in the air, accompanied by piercing whistling sounds. Liu Fang's expression remained indifferent. His palms were tightly adhered to those massive fists, slowly drawing strange circular motions. Although the Minotaur had lost all reason after going berserk, a faint thought still surfaced in its mind: break free from those hands. Lacking rationality, it instinctively chose to trust that thought. With a forceful pull, it tried to shake off the pair of fair hands clinging to its arms. But once caught by Tai Chi's sticking force, how could it be so easy to escape? Liu Fang's hands interwove slowly, releasing waves of soft force, dragging the Minotaur into constant spinning. The immense strength within its fists after several rotations had already turned weak and powerless, completely at Liu Fang's mercy. The scene became rather bizarre. The Minotaur's huge body kept swaying back and forth under Liu Fang's hands, like a drunken man, stumbling aimlessly without any footing. Sensing the Minotaur growing weaker, Liu Fang's lips curled slightly. His hands suddenly accelerated, fiercely striking against the massive body. With a dull bang, the Minotaur stopped, moving, staring blankly at his completely unharmed chest. Its simple mind, dulled by berserk rage, couldn't understand why the opponent's strike felt so weak. Was Liu Fang's strike truly weak? Of course, impossible. A moment later, the Minotaur's face suddenly flushed red. He threw his head back and spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with shattered internal organs. Liu Fang's figure flashed, disappearing before the blood could touch him. Only the trembling Minotaur and the terrified knights remained in the field. The atmosphere grew heavy. After a while, the knight Liu Fang had saved finally snapped back to his senses. With a shout, he called everyone back to awareness and ordered his men to drag away the lifeless Minotaur corpse. On a quiet street, Liu Fang walked calmly, holding Hong Yi's hand. "Did you see clearly just now how I used my true energy and the 4 ounces deflecting 1,000 pounds technique?" Liu Fang asked, eyes fixed ahead. Hong Yi nodded softly. Liu Fang smiled in satisfaction, tightening his grip on her hand slightly. Sensing his good mood, Hong Yi's crimson lashes trembled lightly, her lips curving faintly. "Having a genius disciple is both exciting and frustrating," Liu Fang suddenly sighed as they reached the courtyard gate. Hong Yi's petite body stiffened slightly. She forcefully pulled her hand away and said coldly, "I told you, you are not my teacher, and I won't be your disciple." After speaking, she strode into the courtyard, leaving Liu Fang standing there confused. Scratching his head, he shrugged helplessly. What's wrong? Why the sudden mood again? Unable to figure it out, he simply treated it as a little girl's stubbornness. Yet he seemed to forget that Hong Yi's life experience was no less than that of an adult. That entire night, Hong Yi remained gloomy, her small face cold. At the dinner table, Lu Feng smiled bitterly and said, "My little princess, don't be angry, okay? It's just about not being my disciple. Do you have to react this early?" Seeing that she still kept her face cold, eating quietly bite by bite, he finally raised his hands in surrender. All right, I won't mention making you my disciple anymore, okay?" Hearing this, the chill in Hong Yi's face slowly melted. She nodded lightly and said nothing more. "Hey, Brother Lu Feng, I'm here." A loud voice boomed in from the gate. It was Ao Hei. Lu Feng raised his eyelids lazily. "You're here, so what? Do I need to go out and welcome you?" His lips moved slightly, yet his voice clearly reached Ao Hei at the entrance. "Eh." Ao Hei laughed carefreely, pushing the door open and entering the hall. As soon as he stepped in, he saw Hong Yi's demonic face and crimson eyes. His expression changed in surprise before quickly returning to normal. He strode forward and sat beside Lu Feng, gesturing towards Hong Yi with his chin. "Brother, this is—" Lu Feng took a sip of water and replied vaguely, "My younger sister." Ao Hei understood Lu Feng didn't want to elaborate, so he tactfully changed the subject. "Brother Lu, thanks for what happened this afternoon. I've already heard the report." Knowing he meant the Minotaur incident, Lu Feng nodded casually, then asked with some confusion, "How did you let a beast man sneak into Sunset City? With such a difference in appearance, you couldn't tell?" He'd been puzzled about this all along. With such strict defenses, how could a beast man so physically different from humans slip in unnoticed? Ao Hei basked in bitterness. "According to my investigation, that Minotaur had already been living in Sunset City for quite some time. That's how it managed to appear on the streets, despite the tight security." Lu Feng browed. "Living here? No one suspected him all this time?" Ao Hei nodded. "He lived in the slum districts, where security has always been relatively loose. That's why he managed to stay hidden so long." Lu Feng understood, then smiled. "You didn't come here just to thank me, did you?" Ao Hei grinned and clapped his hands. "Of course not. I came to tell you something important. Tomorrow, the teams from the 4 great academies will arrive at Sunset City." Lu Feng was stunned for a moment, then the corners of his lips lifted. "They've finally arrived, Nicholas Shake. When you see that young man whose dignity you once trampled has grown stronger than you, will you be surprised?" Underneath Lu Feng's smile lay a trace of anger and anticipation. The careless Ao Hei didn't notice it, but Hong Yi, who had been watching him, felt it clearly. A shocking killing intent burst forth, howling coldly through the hall. A faint purple glow flickered within her blood-red eyes. Both men were startled. Lu Feng shouted sharply, "Hong Yi, what are you doing? Stop!" Hearing Lu Feng shout, Hong Yi slowly retracted the killing aura and silently sat back down. Such strong killing intent. What a strange girl, Ao Hei marveled, his eyes shining. "Ahem," Lu Feng coughed, pulling Ao Hei's attention back. Let's continue. "Oh, where's your strange snake?" Ao Hei asked, unable to resist. "Sleeping," Lu Feng replied irritably, urging again, "Can you stop changing the subject?" Ao Hei chuckled, cleared his throat, and said, "I want to invite you to come with me tomorrow to observe the strength of this batch of students." "Their strength? Haven't you already heard about it?" "That's just information. Seeing it with your own eyes is what truly matters." Liu Feng nodded lightly, a slight curve appearing at the corner of his lips. He flicked his slender, fair fingers and said, "Brother Ao Hei, I have one condition. I hope you can agree to it." Ao Hei was stunned and quickly said anxiously, "Hey, brother, don't hold me back at a time like this. This concerns the war between 2 nations." Liu Feng smiled faintly. "Don't worry, it's nothing serious. You know I'm very young, right?" Ao Hei paused, then nodded honestly. A star-ranked expert just over 20 years old. If spoken aloud, it would indeed be hard to believe. "And those academy elites are all arrogant and think highly of themselves. They definitely won't take me seriously. I hate being looked at with that kind of attitude, so I hope you can hand them over to me for some training. What do you think?" At this point, a mischievous glint flashed in Liu Feng's eyes. Ao Hei froze, silent for a long time. Just as Liu Feng thought he wouldn't agree, he suddenly burst into laughter. "Haha, I thought you were going to ask for something big. You scared me. This is easy. Don't worry. Every time academy teams come to Sunset City, they go through a training session, and I've always been the one in charge. If you want to train them, I'll let you do it. I hate teaching anyway." Liu Feng nodded in satisfaction. But brother, you can't go too far with this training," Ao Hei said seriously. Liu Feng waved it off casually. "Relax, nothing major will happen. I just want to temper their arrogance. Even if something does happen, I'll take responsibility." Ao Hei widened his eyes, dissatisfied. Brother, are you looking down on me? Train those brats however you like. Just don't kill them. With my relationship with the 4 academy heads, something minor like this can be handled. Liu Feng smiled and nodded. After chatting a while longer, Ao Hei got up to leave. Before going, he glanced once more at Hong Yi, who had been sitting quietly the entire time. Watching Ao Hei's sturdy figure disappear into the night, Liu Feng turned and walked toward Hong Yi's, smiling. What's wrong, little girl? Throwing a tantrum again? Hong Yi raised her eerie little face, her blood-red eyes filled with killing intent. I'm going to kill those people from the 4 academies. Liu Feng froze, then tapped his head helplessly. Did they offend you? And with your current strength, they could defeat you in one move. They made you unhappy, so they should die. Hong Yi murmured softly, lowering her head. Liu Feng sighed. My matters are mine to handle. Don't cause me trouble for me, understand? He lightly flicked her smooth cheek in warning. Hong Yi nodded reluctantly. Heh, all right, go to sleep. The next day, Liu Feng awoke early. When he stepped into the courtyard, he saw a figure slowly practicing Tai Chi. Sweat dripped from her small face. It was clear she had been training for a long time. A surge of anger rose in his heart. He rushed forward and scolded, Why are you pushing yourself like this? Didn't I tell you cultivation should flow naturally? Feeling his anger, Hong Yi looked aggrieved, biting her lip. I just want to help you. Liu Feng smiled bitterly. Listening to me is the best help you can give. Now go rest. He led her back to her room, tucked her under the blanket, and gently flicked her nose. All right, go to sleep. Looking at her exhausted face, a warm feeling arose in his heart. He leaned down and kissed her smooth forehead before leaving. As soon as Liu Feng stepped out, Hong Yi quietly opened her crimson eyes. She touched her forehead, a faint blush appearing on her demonic face, and whispered, I will grow stronger to help you. To stay at home and look after Hong Yi, Liu Feng didn't go out in the morning. After all, the academy teams would only arrive in the afternoon. But just after breakfast, Ao Hei sent someone to summon him. It was none other than Da La, who Liu Feng had met before. Hey, Lord Liu Feng, Lord Ao Hei asked me to inform you that this year's academy teams have arrived. If you're free, please come with me to the City Lord's Mansion. The Grand Duke and Lord Ao Hei are already waiting. Liu Feng nodded, taking Hong Yi's hand. Then I'll trouble you to lead the way. Da La waved his hands quickly. Lord Liu Feng, you're being too polite. He hurried ahead to guide them. Liu Feng and Hong Yi followed at an unhurried pace. They soon entered the City Lord's Mansion. Da La led them to the training grounds at the back, where Ao Hei and the Grand Duke were already seated and waiting. Seeing Liu Feng arrive, both stood up with smiles and nodded politely. Clearly, Liu Feng now held a high position in their regard. Facing these 2 leaders of Sunset City, Liu Feng didn't dare be careless and bowed slightly in respect. Da La quickly brought over 2 chairs and placed them respectfully behind Liu Feng and Hong Yi. Liu Feng nodded in thanks and sat down with Hong Yi. The Grand Duke showed no surprise at the blood-eyed girl beside Liu Feng. Ao Hei had likely already explained everything. Taking a sip of water, Liu Feng smiled. So, have they not arrived yet? They understood who he meant and nodded. The Grand Duke smiled. No rush. According to reports, they've already entered the city. They should be here soon. Liu Feng nodded lightly and said nothing more, sneering inwardly. Nicholas Shu, do you remember that black-haired man in the tavern whose dignity you trampled underfoot? Do you remember what he said? He drained the cup in one go, a cold smile forming on his lips. Time passed quietly. Liu Feng kept his eyes closed, resting. The other present were all extraordinary individuals, so patience was not lacking. Even Hong Yi followed his example, closing her crimson eyes. The vast training ground was silent, broken only occasionally by the sound of someone drinking water. A report shattered the silence. My lords, the teams from the 4 academies have arrived. Let them in, the Grand Duke said calmly. Liu Feng still had his eyes closed, though his ears twitched slightly. A mix of heavy and light footsteps approached rapidly. The training ground gates opened, and a group of spirited young men and women entered. Liu Feng slowly opened his eyes. His gaze shot like lightning toward the front of the group, toward a devastating beauty. Still the same tight purple swordsman woman outfit, still that cold and arrogant expression, still that waist-length purple hair. His lips curled slightly. Nicholas Shu, we finally meet again. Feeling the cold gaze, Nicholas Shu glanced over and saw Liu Feng sitting in the chair. A trace of confusion flashed in her violet eyes. Clearly, she had long forgotten the magic fighting cripple from the tavern. Liu Feng wore white robes today, but they were of the finest fabric gifted by the Grand Duke. Nicholas Shu recognized such luxury, so she simply assumed he was some noble young master and quickly looked away. The group stepped forward and respectfully saluted Ao Hei and the Grand Duke. As for Liu Feng behind them, they ignored him entirely. A playful smile appeared on Liu Feng's lips. As expected, all arrogant. The four standing at the front were clearly the leaders, 4 8th-ranked experts. They reported their names and affiliations. Nicholas Xu, 8th-ranked Sky Swordsman, Starlight Academy. Lan Ying, 8th-ranked Water Mage, Imperial Royal Magic Academy. Gang Za, 8th-ranked Crystal Knight, Dragon Knight Academy. Shi Sharn, 8th-ranked Holy Fighter, Bright Moon Academy. The remaining 8 7th-ranked students also introduced themselves, but Liu Feng paid them little attention. Ao Hei smiled, clearly satisfied. I won't introduce myself. You all know me. For the next 5 days, you will undergo training as per the rules. They showed no reaction. They already knew. A 9th-ranked star expert training them was natural. Ao Hei continued with a smile. However, this time, I won't be the one training you. He will. He pointed at Liu Feng. Everyone was shocked. They looked over. First impression, ordinary. Second impression, still ordinary. All of them were proud geniuses. To be trained by someone their own age, unacceptable. All 12 glared at Liu Feng with hostility and a challenge. Liu Feng didn't even lift his eyelids. He calmly sipped his tea. Seeing his arrogance, anger flared in their eyes. Nicholas Xu tilted her head slightly, recognizing something familiar in his space. Lord Ao Hei, according to the rules, you should be our trainer. Why the sudden change? Ao Hei grinned. Last night at the pleasure house I twisted my waist, so... Everyone's faces twitched. Even Liu Feng wiped cold sweat. Nicholas Xu blushed slightly, then regained her cold expression. Even so, we have our rules. The weak are not qualified to train the strong. Liu Feng chuckled, shaking his head inwardly. Then he stood up, smoothed his white robes, and walked forward. His gaze swept across them. You look down on me? Silence. Liu Feng clasped his hands and smiled. You may be geniuses in your academies, but in my eyes, you're nothing. He paused, then added, That includes you, Miss Nicholas Xu. Rage exploded among them. Weapons were raised. Nicholas Xu sneered. Don't just talk. Ao Hei and the Grand Duke were shocked, about to intervene, but Liu Feng stopped them. Please step outside for a moment. Let me talk with them, he said with a smile. After hesitation, they nodded and left, casting pitying glances at the students. Ao Hei whispered to Nicholas Xu, For your grandfather's sake, I'll give you advice. Don't anger him, or you'll suffer. She didn't believe him. Ao Hei sighed and left. The Grand Duke instructed Dalad to watch and intervene if things got too serious. Dalad's face twitched. Stop them? I'll die if I get close. But no one listened. Left alone, he could only sigh. Hope Liu Feng doesn't beat them too badly. Left alone, On the training ground, the atmosphere grew tense and silent. The 12 youths stared coldly at Liu Feng, killing intent flickering in their eyes. Liu Feng ignored them completely. He reached into his robe, took out the sleeping little gold, and carefully handed it to Hong Yi. She accepted it curiously. It was her first time seeing the little creature. Stretching lazily, Liu Feng raised his eyelids. All of you together, or who's first? His continued arrogance and indifference pushed everyone's anger to the limit. Nicola Shui stepped forward, her voice icy. I'll be the one to experience your so-called skills. Liu Feng glanced at her and flicked his finger casually. Draw your sword, otherwise you won't get the chance. A flash of anger crossed Nicola Shui's beautiful face. She sneered. You don't need to worry about me. Just take care of yourself, and I won't hold back. Liu Feng chuckled and nodded. Then, are you ready? Nicola Shui took a deep breath. Make your move. Liu Feng smiled faintly and nodded, his figure blurred. Instant. His body vanished in an instant, leaving only an after-image smiling faintly in place. Nicola Shui's pupils shrank sharply. A flash of light from her spatial ring, her sword appeared in her hand. Before she could even grip it fully, a mocking whisper sounded beside her ear. With skills like yours, do you dare call yourself a genius? In my eyes, you're not even worth that. Her face flushed with shame and anger, yet she didn't dare move. A warm palm pressed lightly against her chest, right over her heart. With a slight release of force, she would die instantly. The others stared in shock. Nicola Shui, an 8th-rank Sky Swordswoman, had been subdued in a single move. Unbelievable. Grinding her teeth, she said bitterly, You're just relying on your speed. What's so impressive about that? Liu Feng sneered. Miss Nicola Shui, you're already in your 20s. Don't be so naive. In a life-and-death battle, do you think your opponent would give up their strengths just to fight fairly with you? She was speechless. Seeing her unwilling expression, Liu Feng said coldly, Not convinced? Fine, I'll give you another chance. His figure flickered again, returning to the afterimage, merging with it. Shock filled everyone's faces once more. Lia Feng smiled and beckoned with his finger. Come, this time you attack first. Nicola Shui bit her lip tightly. Her ancient sword glowed with intense energy as powerful battle ki surged out, pressing toward Lia Feng. Feeling the pressure, Lia Feng curled his lips. As expected of a sheltered genius, this kind of weak battle ki isn't even on the same level as real fighters. Ignoring the pressure, he smiled. Is that all your strength? Her face flushed red with anger. Taking a deep breath, she said coldly, Try it yourself. Lia Feng shrugged. You go first. I'm afraid if I attack, you'll lose again. It wouldn't be fun. After repeated humiliation, Nicola Shui could no longer endure it. Normally, with her beauty and status, everyone treated her with respect. Never had she suffered such insults. Gripping her sword tightly, her voice turned icy. I don't care who you are. I will kill you. The battle key on her sword surged violently. Lia Feng sneered. What gives you the right to be arrogant in front of me? Your strength? Your background? Without your family, you're not even worth a beggar in my eyes. Her face turned pale with fury. With a sudden push of her foot, she turned into a streak of purple light rushing forward. Her sword traced a full arc as she shouted, Full of moon slash. A crescent of energy formed at the tip of her blade, growing more solid by the second. Lia Feng remained unmoved. With a pull of inner energy, a massive iron hammer from a weapon rack dozens of meters away flew into his hand. He swung it casually, the 100-pound weapon whistling through the air. The crescent slash fully formed and cut forward. The attack arrived instantly. Lia Feng swung the hammer fiercely. Boom! Clang! Two loud sounds echoed. Nicola Shui's body was sent flying over 10 meters, dragging across the ground. Everyone was stunned again. Lia Feng stood calmly, still swinging the hammer as if nothing had happened. He tossed it aside and walked toward her, looking down. Well, convinced? If not, we can continue. Nicola Shui spat out blood, her face burning with humiliation. Not convinced. Oh, then again, Lia Feng replied indifferently. She struggled to stand again, stubborn and unyielding. By the way, Lia Feng smiled slightly. Nice sword. Nicola Shui lifted her chin proudly. My swordsmanship is inherited. Before she could finish, Lia Feng interrupted coldly. I said your sword is good, not your swordsmanship. Don't flatter yourself. Her face flushed again, trembling with anger, yet she couldn't find words to curse him. Lia Feng frowned impatiently. Ready? After I'm done with you, I still have to train the others. His words clearly reached the remaining 11. They instinctively stepped back in fear, then quickly stepped forward again, embarrassed. The battle resumed. First time, Nicola Shui was kicked away. Second time, she was knocked down with a palm strike. Third time, the same. Watching Lia Feng treat such a beautiful woman like a punching bag, the 11 spectators felt their scalps go numb. Finally, after being knocked down again, Nicola Shui could no longer hold back. Tears fell from her eyes. No matter how strong she was still a girl. Never had she been humiliated like this. Lia Feng looked at her crying figure, exhaled slowly, and said coldly, Next. Li Feng ignored Nicola Shu, who was crouching on the ground crying softly. Turning his head, he shouted coldly, Who's next? As his gaze swept onto them, the remaining 11 all stepped back instinctively, not daring to step forward. Seeing this, Li Feng sneered. This is what you call geniuses? So timid you don't even dare accept a challenge, yet you think you can fight beastmen? Their faces alternated between pale and red, but the impression Li Feng had left on them was too terrifying. They hesitated. Finally, Shi Zhan, the fighter, stepped forward, his voice deep. You're stronger than us. None of us can beat you alone. Li Feng crossed his arms and smiled. Then what do you want? All of you together? Shi Zhan's face reddened, clearly feeling ashamed of the idea. Fine, Liu Feng said with a slight smile, beckoning them. All of you, come at once. Let me show you what a real strong person is. You're nothing but weaklings who only shine in ivory towers. The 11 were enraged. They leapt into the field, surrounding Liu Feng, weapons drawn. Seeing their numbers, Gang Sa the Knight shouted, Everyone, let him see that the elites of the 4 great academies are not to be humiliated. His battle key surged, boosting everyone's confidence. The water mage Lin Qing hid behind the warriors, waving his glowing staff. Brothers, charge together. You attack, I'll support. The way he said it sounded more like a bandit than a mage. Realizing this, he awkwardly shrank back. Shi-Zhan grinned honestly, clashing his gauntlets with sparks flying. "We're attacking together, don't blame us." Liu Feng smiled faintly. A heavy sword appeared in his hand and a massive aura burst forth, forcing everyone back a step. Feeling that suffocating pressure, their hearts sunk. This was at least the aura of a 9th-rank star-level expert. They had truly kicked an iron plate. But the arrow was on the string. Under Liu Feng's pressure, they had no choice but to unleash their own battle key to resist. Different colored energies erupted from each of them. Watching them stabilize, Liu Feng nodded slightly. The students of the 4 great academies do have some ability. He raised his heavy sword slightly. "Shall we begin?" Gang Sa gripped his spear tightly. "Begin." "Good," Liu Feng smiled. His figure flashed, leaving an afterimage and shot toward the weakest 8 7th-rank students. They had seen his speed before, but only now did they realize how helpless it felt to face it. To Lan Sheng, Gang Sa, and Shi-Zhan, he was just a white blur. The 7th-rank students likely couldn't even see that. Sounds of fists striking flesh echoed continuously. The 3 gave up trying to save the others. The 2 warriors shielded the mage, watching cautiously. Moments later, Liu Feng reappeared, smiling calmly. All 8 7th-rank students had been knocked out of the arena, unable to stand. "Your turn," Liu Feng said with a smile to the remaining 3. Their nerves tightened. Lan Sheng shrank behind them and waved his staff. "Ice shield!" A layer of frost formed over the 2 warriors, clinging tightly to their bodies. Liu Feng praised lightly, then kicked off the ground, rushing forward. Sword energy shimmered at the tip of his blade. Seeing he wasn't easing his speed, the 3 sighed a relief. Gang Sa infused his spear with battle ki and thrusts forward. Shi-Zhan followed, fists glowing with sharp energy, smashing toward Liu Feng's waist. Liu Feng's sword deflected the spear easily. His blade clashed with Shi-Zhan's fists with a thunderous sound. A lightning-fast kick forced Shi-Zhan back 2 steps. His sword then shot toward Gang Sa's face, too fast to react. Suddenly, countless ice spikes rained down toward Liu Feng. Frowning, he withdrew his attack. Protective energy flared, deflecting the spikes. Lan Sheng continued casting endlessly, forming a storm of ice. Liu Feng sighed at the shameless tactic. His figure flickered, appearing behind Lan Sheng and struck with his palm. Feeling danger, Lan Sheng reacted quickly. A blue water barrier enveloped him. 7th-rank magic, azure water curtain. Liu Feng's palm struck, ripples spread, absorbing the force. His sword followed immediately, slicing through the barrier. Lan Sheng, prepared, released another spell. A massive water vortex mixed with ice spikes spun toward Liu Feng. At the same time, Gang Sa and Shi-Zhan attacked again. Liu Feng waved his sleeve, releasing powerful force that halted the vortex, then reversed it, sending the ice spikes back at Lan Sheng. Then he turned and rushed at Gang Sa. Dodging the spear, he closed in. His sword struck rapidly, leaving afterimages. Gang Sa struggled desperately to defend. Liu Feng suddenly stepped close. His elbow slammed into the knight's chest armor with a loud clang. Gang Sa was sent flying over 10 meters, losing all fighting ability. Only Lan Sheng and Shi-Zhan were left. They regrouped. Liu Feng shook his slightly numbed elbow and praised lightly. "Not bad teamwork. You must have practiced together." Shi-Zhan clucked a foolish laugh. Liu Feng smiled. "Now it's your turn, you 2. Hearing this, Shi-Zhan and Lan Sheng's muscles tightened involuntarily. Lan Sheng's figure flickered as he hid behind Shi-Zhan, lips moving as he prepared a spell. Shi-Zhan clenched his fists tightly, staring intently at Liu Feng. Liu Feng twisted his neck, producing a series of crisp cracking sounds. Taking a deep breath, he smiled and said, "Ready?" Shi-Zhan nodded heavily. Liu Feng stored the greatsword in his spatial ring. With a pull of his right hand, the massive iron hammer lying more than 10 meters away flew obediently back into his grasp. Swinging the hammer lightly, Liu Feng looked at Shi-Zhan's increasingly bitter expression and smiled. "I'll use this to deal with you." Seeing Liu Feng casually swing the hammer like a windmill with his pale hands, Shi-Zhan sighed bitterly. He shook his head, casting aside his fear, steadied himself, and said solemnly, "Come." Liu Feng smiled faintly. His heels slammed into the ground, cracks spreading like a spiderweb. His body shot forward like a rocket, and the hammer swung fiercely down toward Shi-Zhan. The powerful wind pressure howled, making ears ache. Shi-Zhan took a small step back as the hammer brushed past his leather armor, the exposed skin stung numb by the wind. His iron fist shot out, aiming straight for Liu Feng's head. The hammer rose horizontally, and the iron fist slammed into it with a loud clang, sparks flying. Liu Feng suddenly kicked out his right leg, aiming directly between Shi-Zhan's legs. Shi-Zhan's mouth twitched. His fists quickly moved to block, but Liu Feng's leg twisted like a snake, dodging the blow and whipping upward in a strange arc, this time aiming for Shi-Zhan's throat. The speed was too fast. Shi Jian barely managed to guard his throat with his fist before the kick landed. The force in the kick was immense. Shi Jian had to retreat several steps to dissipate it, but in doing so, he exposed Lan Sang behind him. Seeing the hammer closing in, panic filled Lan Sang's face. A ring of his hand spun rapidly, space fluctuating slightly. Liu Feng frowned, but the hammer still smashed into Lan Sang's torso with a loud bang. Lan Sang instantly dissolved into droplets of water in midair. Liu Feng raised an eyebrow. So this is a mirror image. Pretty fragile. Glancing sideways, he saw Lan Sang over 10 meters away, clutching his chest and gasping for breath. Quite a lot of treasures on you, kid, Liu Feng chuckled. Lan Sang forced a bitter smile. If I didn't have these magic items, I'd have been kicked out long ago. Liu Feng laughed softly and said no more, turning back to Shi Jian. The two figures clashed again, flashing across the field. The sounds of fists and hammer colliding rang continuously, sparks flying. Though Shi Jian relied on his excellent close combat skills to fight for dozens of exchanges, the gap in strength was too great. Eventually, Liu Feng exploited an opening and smashed Shi Jian with a hammer, sending him flying out of the arena. Now, only Lan Sang remained. Seeing Liu Feng's smiling face, Lan Sang wisely chose to jump out of the arena himself. Nicola Snow stared blankly at the scene, watching her companions, each as strong as herself, being thrown out one after another. Her grievance in her heart eased slightly. At least she wasn't the only one treated this way. Liu Feng walked over to her and said coldly, "Cried enough?" Nicola Snow's face flushed red. She raised her head and said resentfully, "I will defeat you one day and make you taste this feeling." Liu Feng shrugged indifferently. "Sure, I'll wait, but I don't think you'll get the chance. I'm not very optimistic about you." Nicola Snow snorted coldly. "Don't be so arrogant. Being at the Star Link is not that impressive." Liu Feng curled his lips. "I only know one thing. Right now, I'm stronger than you. That's enough." Nicola Snow froze, bitterness rising in her heart. "The humiliation I've suffered today is more than I've endured an entire year, all because of this bastard." Liu Feng returned to his chair, picked up his cup, and took a big gulp, crossing his legs, looking lazily at the 12 standing before him. "Do you still have any objections to me being your instructor?" No one spoke. Being able to beat all of them alone, this level of strength was more than enough. Even the proud Nicola Snow had no choice but to temporarily submit. "So, you acknowledge me?" Liu Feng smiled. Seeing their silent agreement, he nodded in satisfaction. "Good. Then from now on, I am your instructor. During training, I expect 100% obedience. If anyone disobeys, don't blame me for being ruthless." "What? If you tell us to kill someone, we obey that too?" Nicola Snow said coldly. "Miss Nicola Snow, it seems you've forgotten your position." Liu Feng narrowed his eyes, a cold glint flashing. "Do you want to try again?" Nicola Snow's momentum faltered. Remembering her earlier defeat, she shivered and glared at him before retreating silently. "I'll only make you do things that help your training. If you think something I order isn't beneficial, you can speak up. But if anyone deliberately causes trouble, I'll have to invite them for a private session with me." Looking at the quiet group, Liu Feng smiled faintly. For people this arrogant, the only way to earn their respect is to completely shatter their pride. At least now he had gained their initial respect and fear. Stretching lazily, he waved his hand. "All right, go find Duke Alte. Tomorrow morning, gather here. If you're late, you'll train with me alone." With that, he ignored them and left slowly, pulling Hong Yi along as she played with Xiao Zhane. Watching his figure disappear, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Seeing each other's miserable states, they could only laugh bitterly. Gangster shook his head and said honestly, "Back at the academy, I thought I was amazing. Didn't expect to run into such a monster the moment I came out." Everyone nodded agreeably. Shi Jian scratched his head and said honestly, "I think he's pretty good, really strong." Lan Sang adjusted his robe thoughtfully. "Indeed, I even suspect he might be stronger than Lord Al-Ha." Nicola Snow snorted. "What's so great? Just Starlink. My grandfather's definitely stronger than him." "But it seems he never even told us his name," someone said weakly. Everyone fell silent. The next day, when Liu Feng opened his sleepy eyes and got out of bed, he suddenly noticed a busy red figure in the room. He shook his head, throwing off the remaining drowsiness, and quietly watched Hong Yi prepare washing water for him. A wave of warmth rose in his heart. Getting out of bed, he walked behind Hong Yi, who was heating the water basin, and said with a smile, "Hong Yi, didn't I tell you not to do things like this?" Hearing his voice, Hong Yi was clearly startled, but quickly calmed down and said softly, "I just wanted to do something for you." Liu Feng sighed inwardly and gently stroked her soft black hair, his affection for the little girl deepening once again. Feeling the warm hand on her head, Hong Yi's blood-red lashes trembled slightly, her small hands stirring nervously in the basin. "Hee, all right, I'll wash myself," Liu Feng chuckled. He quickly finished washing and waved toward the gate. "Lazy dragon, come out!" A golden streak flashed through the air and dove straight into Liu Feng's arms. Looking at Xiaojin burrowing into his chest again, Liu Fang pursed his lips helplessly. Recently, he had figured out why Xiaojin always liked staying in his arms. It had been absorbing the true qi leaking from the galaxy-like vortex in his dantian, and had clearly gotten addicted to it. He lifted Xiaojin with one hand and said with a smile, "You can't come with me today, got it?" Xiaojin blinked its big eyes and shook its cute little dragon head stubbornly. In its childish voice, it asked, "Why? Why you don't want me?" As it shook its head, moisture began to gather in its eyes, on the verge of tears. Black lines appeared on Liu Fang's forehead. He hurriedly comforted it for a while, and only after promising several plates of roasted meat did he finally manage to send the greedy little dragon off. Handing Xiaojin to Hong Yi, he instructed, "Stay in the yard today, don't run around, wait for me to come back, okay?" Hong Yi nodded reluctantly, gently holding Xiaojin and stroking it. She was very curious about this strange little creature that always stayed in Liu Fang's arms. Perhaps because it carried his aura, she found herself liking it very much. Watching the girl and dragon play, Liu Fang smiled and quietly left. He strolled leisurely all the way to the city lord's mathin. At the entrance, a figure was pacing anxiously back and forth. Upon seeing Liu Fang from afar, he was overjoyed and hurried over. "Lord Liu Fang, you've finally come." Liu Fang nodded and smiled. "Kada, what's wrong?" Kada gave a bitter smile. "You should hurry and train those people. They're already getting impatient. Lord Ao He told me to entertain them. I'm exhausted." Liu Fang smiled faintly. "Then let them wait. If they don't have even this bit of patience, what's the point in participating in the duel?" Kada could only smile bitterly again. Seeing Liu Fang's unhurried attitude, he suppressed his anxiety, glanced around to make sure no one was nearby, and secretly gave a thumbs up. "Lord Liu Fang, you were really ruthless yesterday." Liu Fang chuckled. "You saw?" Kadai grinned mischievously and nodded. "Lord Ao He told me to stand at the door and go in if something happened, but with my skills, going in would just get me beaten up, so I just stayed outside and watched you thoroughly crush them." Liu Fang was speechless. When Liu Fang finally entered the training ground, he was greeted by 12 pairs of indignant eyes. He ignored them completely, walked calmly to the center, and lay down on a soft chair, gently rocking. "Lord, didn't you say we should come early? We've been waiting here for a whole hour," Nicholas No said through clenched teeth. Liu Fang ignored her, picked up a fresh cup of tea, took a sip, and even sniffed it leisurely. Only after a while did he raise his head and look at her flushed face. "I said you should come early. I never said I would come early." Nicholas No nearly bit through her teeth in anger. Her chest rose hard. After suppressing her anger with difficulty, she said coldly, "Then how do you plan to train us? It better not be some boring method." Liu Fang raised his eyelids slightly. "From now on, you will address me as instructor. Anyone who gets it wrong, step forward for a one-on-one." Everyone's hearts trembled and quickly memorized the strange title. After thinking for a moment, Liu Fang slowly said, "Do you know your biggest flaw?" The 12 people looked at each other, unable to answer. They had always thought highly of themselves, but after yesterday's beating, none dared speak carelessly, afraid of being called out for a one-on-one. Liu Fang sighed lightly and said coldly, "Your biggest flaw is the lack of life and death combat experience. You've been living in ivory towers. Even your matches are just controlled sparring." His gaze swept across them coldly. Anyone who met his eyes instinctively looked away, even the proud Nicholas No. "This time, the battle against the Beastman is a battle to the death. In the arena, only one survives. There's no surrender, no mutual defeat. Even if you have to crawl, you must get up. Even if you have to bite, you must tear your opponent's throat out. Otherwise, the one who dies will be you." His cold, brutal words made their skin prickle. No one wanted to die, so they all accepted his harsh words silently. Lansang stepped forward slightly and asked hesitantly, "Then, instructor, how do you plan to train us?" Seeing someone finally speak, Liu Fang nodded in satisfaction, revealing a bright grin. "Of course, I'll take you to experience the feeling of killing." His chilling laughter echoed across the training ground. The 12 of them suddenly felt a very bad pre-feeling. Hearing this, Shi Zhan and Lan Shang's muscles involuntarily tensed. Lan Shang's body flickered as he hid behind Shi Zhan, lips moving as he prepared a spell, while Shi Zhan clenched his fists and stared fixedly at Liu Fang. Liu Fang twisted his neck, producing a series of crisp, bone-cracking sounds, took a deep breath and smiled. "Ready?" Shi Zhan nodded heavily. Liu Fang put away the heavy sword in his spatial ring. With a pull of his right hand, the massive iron hammer lying more than 10 meters away flew obediently back into his grasp. Swinging the hammer, Liu Fang looked at Shi Zhan's increasingly bitter expression and smiled. I'll use this to deal with you. Watching Liu Fang casually spin the massive hammer like a windmill with his fair hands, Shi Zhan let out a bitter sigh, shook his head to dispel the fear in his heart, steadied himself, and said solemnly, Come on. Liu Fang smiled faintly. His heels stomped the ground, cracks spreading like a spiderweb as he shot forward like a rocket. The hammer swung down fiercely toward Shi Zhan. The powerful wind pressure howled, making ears ache. Shi Zhan took a small step back as the hammer brushed past his leather armor, the exposed skin numbed by the pressure. His iron fists shot forward, aiming at Liu Fang's head. The hammer rose horizontally, and the iron fist smashed into it with loud clangs, sparks flying. Suddenly, Liu Fang's right leg kicked out toward Shi Zhan's lower body. Shi Zhan's mouth twitched. He hurriedly swung a fist toward the vicious kick, but Liu Fang's leg moved like a cunning snake, twisting in a strange arc to avoid the punch before snapping upward toward Shi Zhan's throat. Liu Fang's speed was too fast. Shi Zhan barely managed to block his throat with his fists before the kick landed. The power in that kick forced Shi Zhan back several steps, but in retreating, he exposed Lan Shang behind him, who had been chanting a spell. Seeing the hammer rapidly approaching, panic filled Lan Shang's face. A ring on his finger spun quickly, space rippled slightly, and his figure flickered. Liu Fang frowned, but the hammer still slammed into Lan Shang's chest. With a crisp bang, Lan Shang turned into droplets of water and scattered into the air. Liu Fang curled his lips. So this is a mirror image, pathetically weak. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Lan Shang more than 10 meters away, clutching his chest and gasping. You've got quite a few treasures on you, Liu Fang chuckled. Lan Shang gave a bitter smile. If I didn't have these magic tools, I'd have been kicked out already. Liu Fang laughed, said no more, and turned back to face Shi Zhan. The two figures clashed rapidly, fists and hammer colliding constantly, sparks flying. Although Shi Zhan relied on his strong close combat skills to exchange dozens of moves with Liu Fang, the gap in strength was too great. Eventually, Liu Fang forced an opening with overwhelming speed and sent Shi Zhan flying out of the arena with a single hammer strike. Only Lan Shang remained in the arena. Seeing Liu Fang's smiling face, Lan Shang wisely chose to jump out himself. Nicola Shoes stared blankly at the match. Watching companions as strong as herself being thrown out one after another eased some of her grievance. At least she wasn't the only one treated this way. Liu Fang walked over and said coldly, Cried enough? Nicola Shoes' face reddened as she raised her head and said resentfully, I will defeat you one day and make you taste this feeling. Liu Fang shrugged. I'll be waiting, but I don't think you'll get the chance. I don't think highly of you. Nicola Shu sneered coldly. Don't be so arrogant. You're just at star rank. Liu Fang sneered again. I only know that right now I'm stronger than you. That's enough. Nicola Shu fell silent, bitterness rising in her heart. Liu Fang sat back down, drank from a cup of water, crossed his legs, and lazily looked at the 12 standing before him. Do you have any objections to me being your trainer? Silence. Then you accept me? He asked with a smile. Seeing their tacit agreement, he nodded in satisfaction. Good. From now on, I am your trainer. When training, I expect absolute obedience. If anyone disobeys, don't blame me for being ruthless. What if you tell us to kill someone? Do we still obey? Nicola Shu asked coldly. Liu Fang's eyes narrowed. Have you forgotten your position? Want another round with me? Her expression stiffened. Remembering her earlier defeat, she shuddered and stepped back, daring not to speak again. I'll only have you do things useful for training. If you think something is pointless, you can speak up. But if anyone deliberately causes trouble, his tone turned icy, I'll have a private session with them. Looking at the silent group, Liu Fang smirked. For proud people like them, only by crushing their arrogance could you earn their respect. At least now he had gained their initial respect and fear. Stretching lazily, he waved his hand. All right, go find Duke O.T. Tomorrow morning, gather here. Anyone late will train one-on-one with me. He then left with Hong Yi. The group watched him leave and collectively let out a breath of relief. The next day, when Liu Fang woke up groggily, he noticed a busy red figure in the room. It was Hong Yi preparing washing water for him. He felt a surge of warmth in his heart. Walking behind her, he smiled. Didn't I say you don't need to do this? Hong Yi lowered her voice. I just wanted to help you. After washing up, Liu Fang called out, and a golden streak leaped into his arms. He explained it couldn't follow him today, coaxing it with promises of roasted meat before handing it to Hong Yi. Later, Liu Fang arrived at the training ground, late. He was greeted with 12 furious stares. Ignoring them, he lay down lazily. Nicola Shu said angrily, You told us to come early. We've been waiting an hour. Liu Fang sipped his tea calmly. I told you to come early. I never said I would. He then began explaining their biggest flaw, their lack of real life-and-death combat experience. This is not a sparring match. It's a fight to the death. Only one survives. His cold words made their skin crawl. When asked how he would train them, Liu Fang smiled. Take you to experience killing. A chill ran through the group. Where? Shijan asked. Liu Fang replied lightly, the death arena. Shock filled the group. Nicola Shu immediately objected, but Liu Fang harshly shut her down, criticizing her arrogance and privilege. In the end, he gave them a choice, go or quit. One by one, they followed him out. At the arena entrance, Nicola Shu was harassed by a noble. Already furious, she kicked him straight between the legs, sending him screaming to the ground. The crowd fell silent. Liu Fang stared at Nicola Shu with a strange expression. She quickly defended herself, but Liu Fang simply said, I didn't say anything. I was just thinking, that kick was very precise. You must have practiced it a lot. Nicola Shu blushed deeply. When Maya hurriedly ran out of the gate, the first thing he saw was Viscount Kella rolling on the ground in agony. Then he glanced at the cold-faced, beautiful purple-haired woman. How could he not understand what had happened? Inwardly, he viciously cursed every female relative in Kella's family, but on the surface, he quickly put on a smile and greeted the young man in white at the front. "Ha, my lord, please come in. I've already prepared everything you requested." Liu Fang smiled faintly, cupped his hands, and said, "You must be President Maya? Sorry for the trouble." Maya hurriedly waved his hands, saying he didn't dare accept such courtesy. Without even glancing at his regular customer writhing on the ground, he bent slightly and led the way carefully. Liu Fang waved his hand and led the group inside the massive dark gate. As he passed through, his lips moved slightly, and a strand of sound, bound by internal energy, was sent to Nicola Shui's ears. That was a pretty good kick. I like it. Nicola Shui froze, almost unable to believe her ears. That devil-like man had actually praised her. A strange sense of satisfaction rose in her heart. Her long lashes trembled slightly, though her face showed nothing. She merely let out a disdainful snort. Liu Fang didn't care and said to President Maya, "President Maya, later, please find us a secluded place. The nobles behind." When Maya hurriedly ran out of the gate, the first thing he saw was Viscount Kella rolling on the ground in agony. Then he glanced at the cold-faced, beautiful purple-haired woman. How could he not understand what had happened? Inwardly, he viciously cursed every female relative in Kella's family, but on the surface, he quickly put on a smile and greeted the young man in white at the front. "Ha, my lord, please come in. I've already prepared everything you requested." Liu Fang smiled faintly, cupped his hands, and said, "You must be President Maya? Sorry for the trouble." Maya hurriedly waved his hands, saying he didn't dare accept such courtesy. Without even glancing at his regular customer writhing on the ground, he bent slightly and led the way carefully. Liu Fang waved his hand and led the group inside the massive dark gate. As he passed through, his lips moved slightly, and a strand of sound, bound by internal energy, was sent to Nicola Shui's ears. That was a pretty good kick. I like it. Nicola Shui froze, almost unable to believe her ears. That devil-like man had actually praised her. A strange sense of satisfaction rose in her heart. Her long lashes trembled slightly, though her face showed nothing. She merely let out a disdainful snort. Liu Fang didn't care and said to President Maya, "President Maya, later, please find us a secluded place. The nobles behind me won't be able to handle too much exposure." Maya wiped cold sweat from his forehead and smiled. "Of course, my lord, how could I dare let you perform in the main arena? Duke Aote has already given instructions." The 12 behind him all let out a long breath of relief. Though they had agreed to train here, their identities made it difficult to fight freely in public. It would only cause unnecessary trouble. Liu Fang wasn't foolish either. His earlier words were just to break their arrogance. Making them fight slaves in public was unrealistic in this world where slavery was part of society, and Liu Fang had no intention of becoming some grand hero to abolish it. Lansang chuckled flatteringly. "Coach, you do think for us. Not so heartless after all." The others quickly nodded in agreement. Even Nicola Shui gave a slight nod. Liu Fang rolled his eyes and said, "Who said I'm thinking for you? I'm just worried your angry parents might smash President Maya's place." Everyone laughed awkwardly and shut up. Maya's steps faltered slightly as he cursed internally. "So it was your damn idea. What a terrible one." But he didn't dare say it out loud. Seeing how this black-haired young man had already subdued such a powerful group, he knew his strength must be terrifying. After several turns, a spacious and brightly lit small arena appeared before them. Li Feng glanced around and nodded with satisfaction. It resembled an ancient Roman Colosseum, with tiered seating surrounding a wide central field. Their position was several meters high, giving them a full view of the arena. Nodding, Liu Feng jumped down lightly, landing like a falling leaf. He waved for the others to follow. The men couldn't help but admire his graceful movement. Watching the others jump down like clumsy divers, Liu Feng shook his head speechlessly. Only Lan Zhang floated down with magic. Liu Feng's gaze fixed on the 4 heavy iron gates in the arena. Faint traces of bloodlust and brutality seeped from within. President Maya, bring them out. Remember, only 5th rank and above. The stronger, the better. Maya quickly nodded hurriedly. Don't worry, my lord, you will be satisfied. He clapped lightly. One of the iron gates creaked open, revealing a pitch-black tunnel. Clank, clank. The sound of chains echoed from within. A thick, bloody aura grew stronger. The 12 exchanged uneasy glances, fear visible in their eyes. Liu Feng narrowed his eyes and nodded faintly. As the chain sounds grew louder, several large figures slowly emerged from the darkness. 6 burly bear men stepped forward, their upper bodies covered in terrifying scars, evidence of countless brutal battles. With their appearance, the arena's bloody and savage aura surged. Nicola Shui and the others turned pale and instinctively stepped back. Even Maya retreated a step. Only Liu Feng stood firm, unmoving like a mountain. Not bad, Liu Feng nodded. 2 7th rank, 4 6th rank. The 6 men were slightly startled that he could see through their strength so easily. A hoarse voice came from the central man. You are strong. Having lived on the edge of death for years, he sensed danger from Liu Feng unlike anything before. Maya quickly explained. My lord, this is Baote, our arena's ace, 7th rank gladiator. He's fought 323 matches, 313 wins, 5 losses, 5 draws. Liu Feng was surprised, not by the wins, but the fact that he survived 5 losses. In a death arena, defeat usually meant death. Seeing his confusion, Maya explained that Baote had been judged as losing only after crippling his opponents due to special rules. Liu Feng nodded in understanding and smiled. President Maya, are they mine now? I can do whatever I want with them. Maya nodded quickly. Duke Aote has already said so. They're all yours to command. Liu Feng stepped forward slightly and said lightly, igniting something deep within the 6 men. Do you want freedom? Do you want to shed your slave status? Their faces flushed with excitement. Pointing behind him at the 12 students, Liu Feng smiled. As long as you teach them what real life and death combat is, I'll give you your freedom. The 6 men nodded heavily. Baote grinned fiercely. Can you really keep your word? I don't lie. If you want freedom, you can only trust me. Then he turned to the 12 and said coldly, you can still back out now. If you wait until you start suffering, it'll be too late. Not this line again, they cursed internally, but they all stepped forward. If you choose to stay, Liu Feng's lips curled slightly, then training begins. Lam Thung coughed lightly, then forced a smile and said, Coach, how exactly are you planning to train us? 12 pairs of eyes stared intently at Liu Feng. Shrugging, Liu Feng replied casually, it's nothing special. Seeing the disbelief in their eyes, he rolled his eyes. Look at you, elite students from the 4 great academies, yet you're scared of training to this extent? Nicola Shu snorted unwillingly. Who knows what kind of twisted methods you'll come up with? How could we not be afraid? Liu Feng pursed his lips and said in a deep voice, if what you lack is the awareness that comes from life and death combat, then I'll let you experience it firsthand. Where? Xizhan scratched his head and asked. Liu Feng stood up and said lightly, a life and death arena. What? Everyone was shocked. Nicola Shu frowned and immediately objected. No, we're not going there. That place is just for nobles to seek entertainment. I don't want to be treated like an animal and watched by them. The others didn't voice objections, but their unmoving feet revealed their thoughts. Liu Feng's brows lifted, anger rising in her condescending tone. He turned and sneered, you think you're superior, that it's a lowly place? Then tell me, what makes you noble? If not for being born into a good family, what right do you have to look down on others? And judging by your reaction, it's not like you've never been there before, right? Did you enjoy watching? His blunt words struck her hard. Nicola Shu trembled slightly, tears welling in her purple eyes. She sniffed and forced them back, her voice trembling. I don't think I'm superior. I just feel uncomfortable being treated like an animal there. Seeing her expression, Liu Feng softened for a moment, but quickly suppressed it. He spoke more calmly. You're not familiar with real life and death combat. This is the fastest way for you to understand its dangers. Of course, his tone turned cold again. If you don't want to go, I won't force you. Just don't participate in the battle against the beastmen. No point risking your lives and embarrassing us. With that, he walked out. Decide for yourselves. If you're coming, follow me. If not, go back to the academy. Nicola Shu stared at his retreating figure, feeling wronged and furious. But returning to the academy? That was worse than death. Her grandfather would be the first to punish her. She stomped her foot and followed, muttering, Damn Dai, just wait until this is over. Seeing someone take the lead, the others followed one by one. Outside, Liu Feng leaned against the wall. Seeing Nicola Shu approach first, he smirked, Oh, Miss Nicola, you actually dare to go? She gritted her teeth, furious. All you do is bully a woman. Liu Feng raised a brow. You think I'm targeting only you? She snorted, then asked suspiciously, Have we met before? Liu Feng's lips curled with faint mockery. Typical. People of status forget easily. He said nothing. Soon, all 12 stood before him. Without a word, Liu Feng led them out. Dark Hell was the most famous death arena in the city, sun never sets. Every day, thousands of nobles seeking thrills and mercenaries looking for extra income gather there. Its owner, Maya, was shrewd and well-connected, even acquainted with the Grand Duke. But today, he had received a sudden order. The elite team from the 4 great academies would train in his arena. This terrified him. Any one of them could shut his place down with a single word. Sir, they've arrived. Maya took a deep breath. Damn it, we'll deal with it as it comes. Liu Feng casually led the group into the massive arena. Seeing the long queue outside, he nodded in satisfaction. Nicola Shu felt uncomfortable under the many heated gazes. She snapped, Coach, are we here to waste time? Liu Feng ignored her. If you don't want to wait, go back. She clenched her teeth again in frustration. Then, like flies appearing out of nowhere, a young noble stepped forward. Miss, hello. I am Vichad Fete Lagu. My father is a marquis of Sun Never Sets. May I have the honor of knowing your name? Liu Feng glanced at him once and ignored him. Nicola Shu's face turned cold. Get lost. The Viscount stiffened. Miss, that's quite disrespectful. Do you know who I... Ah! Before he could finish, Nicola Shu kicked him hard between the legs. He collapsed, screaming in agony. Silence fell. All eyes turned to her long legs. Liu Feng stared at her with a strange expression. Flustered, she quickly said, He was annoying me. Liu Feng rolled his eyes. I didn't say anything. Why so defensive? All I was thinking was that kick of yours was quite precise. Lots of potential. Practiced a lot, huh? Her face flushed red, but she didn't deny it. Poor Viscount Fete. Truly unfortunate.